Started. I know we have a lot of people here and potentially some people in the lobby that would like to speak tonight. Welcome to the March 15th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting for MSAD 51. We don't have any recognition this evening, so we will move right into approval of minutes. I do want to mention that we will be holding two public comment sections, similar to how we did this last time, which was one that was open to all public comments, and then a second that will follow Superintendent Porter's Getting to Green presentation. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. And we will be holding all public comments to those two sections per our policy. There is no public comment after items of action. So do I have a motion for the approval of minutes for March 1st, 2021?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. So we will then open up public comment for anyone that would like to speak beyond or outside of the Getting to Green process recommendation. You're welcome to approach the podium. I'm guessing that most people are here for that, but wanted to make sure.
Hello, everyone. My name is Esther Coyle. I happen to be a math teacher at Greeley High School. And I wanted to start tonight by first saying thank you to the building administrators for the presentation that they did at the last board meeting. I could see it took a lot of work. Sally Laughlin, Carol MacArthur, Mari Treblecock, and Chris Hoffman. It's been a lot of hard work, and I know that you've got a lot of hard work facing you to get us so-called back to normal. And I've worked with all of you at some point or another on some kind of a committee, and I have the utmost respect for you. I know how dedicated you are, and I know that always in the top of your mind to the forefront is that you want to do what's best for our students. I also wanted to say thanks to Jeff Porter tonight for all the work that he's done to help us make us one of the top districts in the state of Maine. I'm sorry that the U.S. CDC and the Maine CDC requirements have led to personal attacks on your character and integrity. I have never, ever doubted your integrity, character, or desire to do what's best for our students. I also want to thank the school board. You're serving during an unprecedented time during a worldwide pandemic. None of us could have ever imagined what you would be signing up for. So I appreciate, in a way I think of you as volunteers, so I just wanted to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you to my students from the spring and also as well as this school year for their trust in me that no matter what, that I was doing all that was possible to make an impossible situation as good as it possibly could be for them. And I thank them for that. They bring the joy to my life every day. And last but not least, I wanted to say a word to my colleagues in the MSAD 51 district. I believe that teaching is an act of faith and the promise of the future. This is not a job that you do for the prestige or for the accolades that you receive. I think that's obvious in the press every day, and it has been for years. But when I say it's an act of faith and the promise of the future, to me, it is our future. And last but not least, to paraphrase Dr. Shaw, we won't remember the details of this pandemic, but we will remember how we were treated. And to all of you that are here tonight, and also the parents of my students that have been supportive, I just wanted to put out a thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak outside of the Getting to Green process recommendation? Okay. Next up, we have communications, and I believe Margot Harrington has something to share.
I do, thank you. I serve on the Cumberland Rec Advisory Board, which met for the last time just about a year ago. Before the meeting today, I had a conversation with Pete Bingham in order to be able to provide the community an update. Since the first day of school, they've been running a full-day daycare program, and this season, they're also running a middle school basketball league. Looking ahead, this spring and summer program offerings will include a variety of activities and day camps. A brochure of programming should be in people's mailboxes by the first week of April. The new outdoor guidelines announced by the state starting in May will coincide with the start of the summer rec offerings, and for that, we're very grateful. There are a number of new initiatives and a number of things that are coming back from not last year, but the year before. And one of the things that Pete would like me to express is that everything that's happening requires more staff and more volunteers. So if there are parents who are interested in running or ultimate frisbee or any of the other offerings that you see in the books when they come out in a couple of weeks, please contact Pete. Additional help will be appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Margot. That's exciting to know that that's going to be in our mailboxes, and we can look forward to that. So without any other communications, I don't believe there is anything else. We will move into presentations, which will first start with Superintendent's recommended 2021-2022 budget. And I believe for the board members, we're going to be able to watch that here. Look at that. Nice work, Andy.
All right, thank you, Andy. Thank you. And tonight, I'm going to be presenting the FY22 budget for the school district. This is a proposed budget. This is the annual presentation, and just want to start off by saying it's been a challenging budget to put together, considering all of the concerns around the pandemic and what is ahead with the pandemic, and trying to find the right balance with the budget. And I'd like to thank all the school administrators for all their hard work in putting together their detailed budgets and all of the priorities that we have discussed, which we are proposing to the board tonight. I'd also like to thank the Finance Committee really for being a partner with the administration for the last 2 months as we've looked at the proposed priorities and helping us to bring forward this budget that's being presented this evening. So just starting with that, schools are more than just something to pay for. They are something to invest in. We certainly, that's why we're here. That's why we educate our students. As much as the budget is incredibly important, we have to remember what the budget is for at the end of the day. This is the SAD 51 mission statement: to guide all students as they acquire enthusiasm for learning, assume responsibility for their education, achieve academic excellence, and discover and attain their personal best. And I'd like to just call out the debate team at the high school, and just basically for all the accolades that the debate team has accomplished over the last couple of years. They won yet another award this weekend, so congratulations to them, and they're pictured here. This is the SAD 51 strategic plan, the summary wheel that we use. There's 4 components of the strategic plan. There's wellness, which is the foundation for teaching and learning, skills for the 21st century, skills for life, early childhood education, the critical building block, and every student is college and career ready. Those are the 4 tenets that we are basing the strategic plan and the budget on. This has been a little bit more of a challenging year to align with the strategic plan. We put a lot of the strategic plan, as the board knows, and you approved back in June of last year, on hold this year in order to respond to the health crisis that we've been working through. Here are some assumptions about the FY22 budget that we started with in building this budget. Number 1 is, except for health and safety, returning to 100% in-person learning is most important for the new school year that's coming up. So we built a budget around returning to school as is more typical. Number 2, academics and instruction are our top priorities, and they are reflected in this budget. There are many additional instructional positions that you will find in this budget. as we know that we will need to do even more next year in order to make sure that our students have what they need after 18 months having been through a pandemic by the time we get to September. Number 3, in green, this budget assumes that we're in green, as I mentioned earlier, with no state restrictions, no physical distancing limits, and that everything is moving forward as more typical. Next, a full staff roster with no approved COVID leaves. We have several staff that are out this year. We have permanent substitutes that we've hired for the year. We do not carry a full staff roster at this time. And lastly, enrollment projections are not quite as accurate for us to project as usual because we've had different fluctuations in our enrollment this year that are typical of most districts in the state of Maine. Grades 2 through 12 is a little more predictable. We start with the data that we have, the current enrollment, and then we project out. We also have projections that we have had done twice in the last 3 years. We use those projections, but because of the pandemic, we've had to be a little bit more nuanced. We sent out a survey to all of the families of children who are in the remote school, are currently being homeschooled, transferred to a charter or private school, and asked if they were coming back. Out of the returns that we had, we sent out, I think, 250 surveys. We received about 150 back, and 83% said yes, they are returning in the fall. This is our district statistics. As of right now, we have 2,094 students enrolled in the school district. We have 96% of our students in June completed high school. And I will say that the 4% that don't, we usually get to 100%. Students, if they don't complete high school by the 4th year, the end of the 4th year, they're considered to have not graduated. But we do have students that will come back and complete another semester or a few months or even a few weeks, and then they are considered graduated. 86% of the students in the class of 2020 went on to some sort of post-secondary enrollment. 6% of our students are on free and reduced meals. 8% of our students are students of color. 13% of our students are special education on an IEP. 12% of our students are in a Section 504 plan, either for academic or medical or both. 5% of our students are identified gifted and talented, which is the state limit for any school district or school or grade level. And 1% of our students are identified as English language learners, don't speak English as their first language. In building this budget, the first place that we always start are salaries, benefits, utilities, debt service, what we consider to be fixed costs. Generally speaking, there are standard increases in those salaries and benefits. We made assumptions based on that for next year, and we still don't have information, for example, on health insurance. We don't get that information usually for a few more weeks, so we made assumptions about health insurance. We're also in negotiations with 3 of our bargaining units right now, and as a result of that, we've made assumptions about that, but we don't have those finalized figures either. But we start with about 80% of our budget being the fixed costs, and then the smaller amount, 20% at the top, is really based on the year that we're in. Changing conditions for this year is a huge part of that, and then we have a small amount at the top, which are aligned directly to the strategic plan or strategic priorities. At Mabel I. Wilson School, the proposed budget that I'm putting before the board tonight has $281,806 in increased expenses in terms of priorities or changing conditions that we feel like needs to be in the budget for next year. We have 669 students that are enrolled at Mabel I. Wilson School right now. 616 of those students are in our hybrid program or hybrid model, attending school in person 2 days a week and remotely 3. And we have 53 students at Mabel I. Wilson School who are enrolled in the fully remote learning program by choice or by need. We have 770 students that we are projecting at Mabel I. Wilson School for the next school year. The first priority that we're looking at is increasing enrollment. Again, this has been really a hallmark of Mabel I. Wilson School. We're looking to add 2 positions, just regular general classroom positions at the Wilson School. We are expecting 200 new kindergarten students. It will be one of the largest classes the district has had in a very long time coming in, and right now we are on track to have all 200 students at this point, if not very close to that. We've had the highest registrations for kindergarten in as long as I've been here at this time of the year, and we usually extrapolate another 20% or so students that we get between now and the summer. So we are on track for 200 students in September, which is what was projected by planning decisions a couple of years ago. For any new 2 classrooms that we add, there's things that we need to outfit those classrooms. We need furniture, that's $10,000. We are out of space again after adding a modular unit. We're going to be adding a section. We're proposing that a section be added to the modular unit we have at Mabel I. Wilson. We have 8 classrooms in the modular unit right now. We are proposing that we add 2 more classrooms to that existing unit. It wouldn't be a standalone unit. And that would cost $41,000 in order to do that, $41,688 for the annual lease in order to do that. There is some site work that needs to be completed, and that site work we will be taking out of capital funds and not out of the operating budget. Technology, in order to outfit those 2 classrooms, again, these are all enrollment related and enrollment tied to our enrollment increases. It'll be $8,000 to put technology in both of those rooms. Because of the year that we're in, and because we know that there are some students that might need a remote option, we have a half-time remote learning option teacher, case manager, that we're proposing in this budget. And that includes benefits, and that's directly resulting from the COVID health crisis, but also just anticipating that there may be some families whose children, this may be the best option for them next year still. So we're proposing that there's a half-time teacher in this budget at Wilson School. And finally, at the Wilson School, we have, with the enrollment of expected 770 students, we have less than 2 full-time people in the school office right now. This additional funding of $14,739 would bring the school office support personnel up to 2 full-time people. With a school of that many students, we need 2 full-time people in positions that are in our school office. So again, it's $281,806 that we're proposing is the increase to Mabel I. Wilson School. And the areas that are checked are areas that are aligned with our strategic plan. And you can see that almost every area except for the remote option is aligned. And that's based on the elementary education part of our strategic plan. Greeley Middle School 4-5 has an enrollment of 312 students currently. 289 of those students are in the hybrid model, and 23 students are learning fully remotely. 328 students are projected for the upcoming school year. And again, the survey that was returned by families was very helpful in helping us to more accurately project our enrollment for next year. So for next year, we're adding a general classroom. It's the first time in years that we have added a general classroom to the 4-5 school. Even though we've had increasing enrollment at the 4-5 school, at the middle school, we have made it work with slightly higher class sizes. We can't do that anymore. The class sizes would be too high. So we knew there was going to be a day that came that we were going to need to add a classroom at Greeley Middle School 4-5, so we're proposing that. So that's a teaching position of $82,951, and that includes benefits, and that's enrollment related. We also, as a result, will need to increase the art program and the STEM program for grades 4-5 in order to keep up with the number of classrooms and the enrollment that we have. we have to keep up with our allied arts options. And finally, at 4.5, we have the other half of a remote learning option, case manager and teacher, as we saw with the Wilson School, and so that full-time position would provide remote learning for students across the elementary grades. So total priorities for GMS 4.5 is $150,167 that we're proposing. For Greeley Middle School 6 through 8, we have 472 students enrolled in that school right now. 438 students are enrolled in the hybrid model, and 34 students are learning fully remotely. Next year, we're projecting 476 students. We are proposing in this budget that we restore a classroom teacher that was removed from the budget a year ago. That brought a team of teachers who are in a team of 4 down to 3. I have met with those teachers and the administration, and we feel it would be in the best interest of the students at this time and of the staff to restore that position back into the budget so that there are 4 teachers on that team in 6th grade. The MLTI program at the state level, right now is in flux. The governor has put the MLTI program back into the state budget. It is up for renewal. However, there are some legislators who have signaled that they may not vote for it, so we're watching that very carefully. If for some reason the MLTI program, which provides all the devices for grades 7 and 8 in Maine and has done so for 20 years, does not go through or does not pass the state budget, we need to have a contingency plan in place, and that's what the $50,000 is for. That certainly will not purchase outright 2 grades of devices, which will be in their 6th year if we continue with them. But it would allow us to lease 1 grade level for 1 year and then get the other grade level in the next fiscal year. The $50,000 could also help us with a difference in the state if they only fund a certain amount and it doesn't quite purchase the devices that we're looking to buy. This would help cover the difference in the upcharge between the two. So we're trying to build a contingency in case things at the state level don't completely work out for the MLTI program as we are planning for it. So total priorities for Greeley Middle School 6-8, $132,951 is what we're proposing for next year. At Greeley High School, we have 641 students enrolled. 612 students are in the hybrid model. We have 29 students learning fully remotely. And we're projecting 627 students at the high school next year. So for the high school, our priorities are a regular ed tech for science and math support. We had this position in the budget years ago. In a meeting with the science department, the curriculum committee heard those concerns about needing more support for science. We also have a period of the day that is not supported for math, where there is no time for math support for kids that need that support. So there's a period right now that we don't have that. This position would fill that need as well so that we are providing ELA, math, and science support across the day and across the board. Next position is a .4 FTE social studies teacher. And this would be to offer 2 courses. Part of it is, these are aligned with our strategic plan around introduction to law and race and equity. We have offered in the past a law course at our high school. We're not currently offering that elective to students right now, so we would be bringing that course back in. And then offering a new course called Race and Equity for students as an elective. And the third position at Greeley High School is a special education ed tech. And this is in compliance with a new federal law that requires us to educate eligible students who are on IEPs up to age 22. And so we do have at least 1 student next year that we anticipate that we'll be having because of the law. And so we are putting that position in, and that person will be working in the functional life skills room at the high school. So this proposed budget calls for $101,087 in increases at Greeley High School. For district-level services, we have 2,094 students. We're projecting 2,157 students next year. We have 1,955 students in the hybrid model, and we have 139 students right now that are learning fully remotely. So in this budget for district services, we have Assistant Director of Instructional Support, which is Special Education Section 504. And this is a reallocation of district office staffing funds. It will there will be no increase to the budget for this position. So at the district office, we have looked at the highest and best use of our resources, and we are eliminating 2 support positions in our office in order to fund this position. We looked at what we needed in terms of support level for the district and for our students, and came up with this model working with the district office team. So again, this will not cost will not be an increase to our budget, just a reuse or repurposing of funds that we already have. A new transportation facility. We have not had to pay for a transportation facility for as long as anyone can remember. But if you've driven by Drown Road recently, you'll notice that there is a new public works facility being built, and part of that is also going to be used by the SAD. So we're paying our share of that annual cost with the town of Cumberland, who we're partnering with on this project. And so that's the annual lease payment, $160,000. This budget, we're proposing 1 new school bus, and this is a lease purchase. School buses cost well over $100,000 today. So the lease purchase on a school bus is $36,750. And if you have seen a couple of our buses recently, every year I say this, especially after the winter, we need to retire at least 1 or 2 buses every year in order to maintain our fleet. Technology, general supplies, and equipment. In previous years, we have leased a lot of our technology, and when we have supplies, we've rolled that into a lease. We have since retired our technology leases. We currently we will not be having leases we don't have any leases in our budget for next year, and a lot of that is because of the CRF funds, the coronavirus relief funds that we received from the federal government. We purchased a lot of those devices, and so you will not see money for devices except for the MLTI program in the proposed budget. We have, through the coronavirus relief funds, also completely upgraded our network. Next week, we'll be flipping all the switches on the new fiber that's been installed, and we should be seeing a huge improvement in our network. And the only cost to us at this point is the annual fee and support licensing, which is $8,500. Next item will save us some money in the student privacy software. Our tech department right now is working with a consortium, but that consortium is always having to put vendor agreements in front of our legal counsel. Our legal counsel is working with many other districts in Maine to cut costs on this and streamline and share all these vendor agreements so that we have a streamlined process for ensuring student privacy. Ticket help system is a system for the technology department. We always receive concerns that the technology department has more requests than they can handle, given the volume of devices, the growing number of students in our district, and the number of staff members that we're adding to our budget in order to maintain our enrollment. As a result, the tech department has not had an increase in their staffing. In meeting with the tech director, he felt that it was important to have a system where they can more adequately and in a timely manner be able to efficiently respond to requests. So this will help do that. As you know, we're proposing a new school project, a primary school project that's been worked on for a couple of years now. That referendum is tentatively being scheduled for the month of September. And in order to hold a special election in the towns, it will cost roughly $15,000 in order to hold that referendum. We've incurred a higher than normal increase in legal fees over the last fiscal year. So this is an actual budget to actual and legal fees of $30,000 as an increase. The SRO, which is the school resource officer, which we share with the town of Cumberland, we haven't had a salary adjustment from the town for a couple of years. And so this is an adjustment that we are being asked to make to our budget. And finally, for district services, our website, which is also free right now, through Google Sites. Google Sites informed all users that as of December of 2021, our website will no longer be free. So we are actually signing on with another vendor, which we think will really improve our website. And we have to pay for a new website regardless, given Google's discontinuation of the website that we're using right now. So for district services, we're proposing an increase of $295,450. So this is our revenue picture going into fiscal year 2020. Our state subsidy, which will be anticipated in FY22, will go up $678,568 for a total of $12,639,774 is what we are being anticipated that we'll be receiving in state aid for next year. Shabig Island, which once was part of SAD 51 in the town of Cumberland, when they withdrew years ago, still we had an agreement with them that they would pay on any debt that was incurred during the time that they were with us, knowing that each year that goes by, that agreement will continue to decline in the amount that they continue to pay to SAD 51. Miscellaneous revenue, has gone down $75,000, and that's really as a direct result of the pandemic. A lot of that is facility use. We usually have fees for different facility uses generally, and we didn't collect those obviously during the pandemic. Same thing with the GCA, the building that we're in, because of the gathering limits and the COVID issues that we've had. We had been collecting about $25,000, so we're showing a $25,000 decline. I think in fiscal year 22, we'll see that, hopefully that number go back up. So our revenue picture, we're up $574,501 or 4.69%. So on the revenue side, we're in a good place. I'm not going to go through these, but the Finance Committee went through all these items. These are administrative requests that were made, priorities that were put forward. Some of these have been on the list for years. Some of them, this is the first time. But we had $738,389 in requested priorities that we were not able to recommend this year. So these are cost center descriptors as I get into the FY22 budget and just show you the numbers. There are 11, what we call 11 lines of the budget that are prescribed by the state. And you'll only see 10 here because the 11th is other. We do not use other. Some other school districts do, but we've decided to categorize all of our funds in one of these 10 lines. One of them is Career and Tech Ed, which is now zero. The state directly pays for students to go to paths, and it does not flow through the districts anymore. So here's the proposed numbers for FY22. In regular instruction, there's a variance of an increase of $1,021,097, or an increase of 5.75%. And that's really our commitment to putting instruction at the forefront of what we're doing next year. So a lot of the positions I just mentioned are in this regular instruction area of the budget. We also have new furniture, for example, for the classrooms at Mabel Wilson School. You'll find that in the regular instruction. So there are several positions that we have proposed that fall under regular instruction. Under special education, that line is up $355,654, or 4.94% increase. We have a new ed tech position and the Assistant Director of Instructional Support is in this line, but you'll see that it's decreased for an reallocation in the System Administration line. CTE, as I mentioned, is nothing because the state directly now pays for those services. Other instruction is up 3.73%. There's no major reason why that is up. That's just cost of living. Student and staff services is up $19,605 or 0.62%. We had leases retired, as I mentioned, in technology, and then we had tech upgrades as well. System administration is down $16,426 or up down 1.54%. Again, reducing support staff, but we have legal fees that went up. And all of the priorities, obviously, that we're talking about are only a piece of the budget. They are not the entirety of the budget, so we're just talking about increases to the budget and not the entire budget. So these percentages don't line up necessarily with the priorities that we're talking about. School administration is up $35,655, 2.27%. A lot of these lines are up just because of salaries and benefit increases as well. And the small increase there is for the additional office support staff at the Wilson School. Transportation, $164,515 for an increase or 9.62%. That line is increased obviously because of the bus garage lease that is in this budget, plus a new school bus lease. Facilities and maintenance is up $232,267 or a 6.04% increase. That's because of the addition of the modular section of 2 classrooms. We've also seen an increase in energy costs as well. Costs are increasing in that area generally. For debt service, we're down $81,763 or 2.59%. And that's because our debt service currently is declining in our obligations right now. So the proposed FY22 budget totals $42,012,007, which is up $1,759,684 or 4.37% over the current year in expenditures. So looking at all those 10 areas of the budget that we budget for by state codes, 72.1% of the expenditures that we're proposing go directly to the classroom. That is above the state average of about 68%. So we've usually been in this area year after year in the low 70s in terms of our percent that we spend directly on the classroom. So what does that mean for taxes? Our proposed budget for Cumberland, the mill increase would be about 30 cents or 1.46% over the current year's tax assessment, which just means that for every $100,000 of assessed property value, it would be $30. In North Yarmouth, it's similar. We are looking at a mill rate increase of 23 cents or 1.39% increase. So for every 100,000 of assessed property value, it would be $23 per year. So we tried to come in knowing that we're in a challenging year for a lot of folks in our community who are struggling with a tax rate that was low. We know that it's low, and we're trying to make it as low as we could without compromising the education of our students. In fact, a lot of the increases in our budget are to support students while also maintaining a tax increase that we feel could be palatable for our families and our community this year. A couple other comments about our budget. This is a FY22 getting to green and staying there. And I'm proposing that the board have a discussion about a possible budget warrant article, which would not be increasing the budget, but it would simply be using some of our reserve funds, which is undesignated fund balance, up to $350,000, only if needed. It would be a safety net only, but it would be, we're proposing a warrant article on the budget. Again, it would not increase or change any of the numbers I've shared. It would simply be using our reserve funds if absolutely needed, and only using what we would need. For staffing, if we are still needing more staff in the fall for whatever reason. For cleaning, we've added cleaning and labor costs, supplies, equipment, et cetera, obviously for this year, and we use federal funds for a lot of that. But in the event that we are short and we need to go into those funds, we'd like the ability to be able to do that. PPE, which is personal protective equipment, which is shields, masks, et cetera, gowns, as needed. We had to purchase a lot of that. We got a lot of it from the state as well. But in the event that we need to go somewhere and find that money, we just want to make sure that we have a safety net in place. And finally, furniture. We've had to purchase new furniture this year. Thankfully, we've been able to do some of it out of federal funds so that students can socially distant. If in some case next fall we have to be in that same spot and we're bringing all of our students back, we're going to need the ability to buy individual desks. In a lot of our classrooms right now, we have tables and not desks, especially at the elementary level. So we would be short in that area, and it's desks are not cheap. So that's another area that possibly we would need a safety net. Now, again, we would only go to our reserve funds if absolutely necessary, and we would certainly be looking for other ways to make up the difference if we needed to before we did this. I just want to note that we did receive about $3 million in coronavirus relief funds. Those monies were available in October, and they dried up December 31st, 2020. There was no money left after that. So there was restrictions on that money. You had to use it by December 31st. You had to use it on things such as staffing, on tangible items that you could do in a very short period of time. We only had a matter of weeks to plan and spend $3 million that came from federal dollars. And just to give you an idea, I've presented this before at a previous board meeting. These are the items that we did spend through the coronavirus relief funds. I'm not going to go through these, but these will be posted on our website with the budget presentation for anyone to review how our funds were spent. We spent a lot of money on technology, upgrades, devices. We spent a lot of money on staffing for substitutes. But again, all this money had to be spent by December 31st of 2020. It is no longer available. That's the way it was with nationally across the country. School districts were given a short period of time in order to spend the money. We were very thankful for it, but it did make it challenging for us to find and spend those things that were most important at the time. And here's a note on a couple of other federal funds. We just received, or were in receipt of what's called the ESSER II funds, the 2021 Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Emergency Relief Funds, which were passed by Congress when President Trump was still in office, just at the end of his term. We received from that stimulus package $178,398 on ESSER II funding. There are some districts in the state, larger districts, that have received literally millions. Lewiston received over $9 million, for example, just to give you a comparison. The reason we received $178,000, it was based on the Title I formula, and in our district we received very little in Title I funds. So we're using, this money can be used for the next 2 years until December of 2023, and we have budgeted for the ESSER II funds an additional 0.8 nurse, which we have on staff right now paid for out of federal funds for the first half of the year when those funds dried up. We are now paying for that position out of the general fund. So we are proposing that we pay for the additional nurse position, which we absolutely need in our district, given the needs for the next 2 years out of ESSER II funds. Additionally, out of this, over the next 2 years, actually for the next year, we're putting aside $15,000 out of these funds to continue paying for PPE, COVID cleaning supplies. That won't go very far. It only goes, that's only a little bit, but we figured let's put it in here. If we need more out of the general budget, then we'll go there next. And then daytime custodians. We've had many of our bus drivers have been cleaning, have added hours to their work schedules and been cleaning our schools during the school day as students have been in, cleaning door handles, windows, etc. So we're proposing in the ESSER II funds to put aside $20,000 to keep doing that. Again, that will only go a little ways. We'll have to go into the general fund after that. And just a notation on what's called the ESSER III funds, and that's the one that Congress just passed a week ago under President Biden, what he recommended. The ESSER III funds have been passed and are now on their way to the state. And we've been advised to expect just a little bit less than 2 times the amount of the ESSER II funds. So we got 178,000. Take times 2 of that, back out a little bit. I'm projecting somewhere in the 300,000 range that we might get. And I'm not going to say that too loudly because we don't know yet. But that's what we've been advised that we can estimate coming in ESSER III funds. So those will be funds that we might be able to use, if we get into some sort of an emergency situation as well. As the budget process continues to go on, I'll be talking with the board about whether or not the warrant article will be necessary or not, depending on what we're getting for the ESSER III funds. Again, there are restrictions around federal monies, and we can only use it for certain purposes, so we'll have to look at those restrictions when we get our allocation amount next month. And finally, these are some dates just to help people understand the process for the budget, the public process. On March 29th, the board will hold a budget workshop virtually, where they go through literally every cost center, every line of the budget, what's up, what's down, and that will be, you can watch that on YouTube. If you'd like to watch that, it's one of our favorite budget workshops, I think, especially Mr. Poulin. He enjoys going through every line. April 26th, the board adopts the budget, and that's at a regular school board meeting. It'll be right here in this room. On Monday, May 10th, there is a remote public hearing. The governor changed the rule again this year, so the district budget meeting is not required, which is the sit-down meeting, and she's advising districts to have people participate virtually so that more people can do so, and to get an explanation of the budget and ask questions about the budget. So we're holding a virtual meeting on May 10th. That has been rescheduled for May 3rd, which we will not be having a board meeting on May 3rd. And then Tuesday, June 8th is the budget validation referendum at the town polling stations, as has been done in previous years. And that can be done either in person or that can be done through absentee ballot.
All right, Jeff, thank you. So I'd like to open it up for discussion from the board and maybe open it to those that aren't on the finance team first. Peter?
Thank you. So in essence, so that the public gets some short understanding of this, really 25% or 1% of that budget increase of the 4% is really just, it's enrollment driven. I mean, it's just, which we kind of knew going in. when we had all these enrollment projections. So, and I think we've always understood that no matter what happens, you've kind of got a base of 3% that's going to happen to open this place. So in essence, that additional amount over 3% is really enrollment delivered. And I think the other thing that is good education for the public is the fact that now, I mean, when everybody's saying, why do we need to build a new school? Well, right now we're up to 10 portable classrooms. So this isn't something that's pie in the sky, but it's reality, whether we like it or not. And finally, I mean, we're hearing all these wild and wonderful things coming out of Washington as far as with this 1.9 million, that some of it's going to be used to go back to the schools for, quote, COVID relief and heaven knows what else, and also state and local government relief. So are we getting any guidance from the state at all on this, or is it still something that's joining Peter Pan and Never Never Land?
No, I think the guidance says that we're receiving some of that stimulus money, and we should be getting those amounts in April. What the state will be, giving us, and we do think it's about a little bit less than twice as the amount that we got for the ESSER II funds. So that's the guidance that we've received so far. So we're just waiting. I say that tentatively because that's just guidance. Doesn't mean that's what we're getting. But that was, we were given that information on Friday. If you need to make some sort of estimate, that's what you should use as your estimate.
And I do think it's a very prudent thing to put the warrant in for the $350,000, and you always anticipate, and it looks like we've got a couple of fallbacks. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I thank you for the work done, and I think it's a prudent increase for one of the top 5 school districts in the state.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else like to speak? All right, we'll do Mike Williams and then Kate.
Thanks. Just a few quick questions. Well, one, just to echo, we really are in a space crisis. If we have 10 modular units, that's insane. And so we should really be thinking of this as a space crisis, so hence the need for a new building. And so to that point, with 2 new units, how are we going to do that space-wise? Where are we going to keep the playground at MIW? That's really concerning.
Yeah, and I probably wasn't clear when I was presenting the budget about that part. It's a section. It's a section that we're going to be putting into that existing unit of 8. And so basically we pull off the end of the modular and we put in 2 more classrooms. So it's 2 classrooms, but 1 section. But it will take up more space, obviously. And then, in this case, I'm not sure if we're going to go into the field or if we're going to be going into, closer to the building on the other side. But either way, it will be less space than if we put another standalone unit. So it will just be part of the unit that we already have. The feedback that I've gotten from the staff that have been out in the unit is that they've appreciated it. It's a huge improvement over a year ago when we had the 3 standalone units. And it's nice for the kids to be together in one unit, all the second grade right now, and all the staff out there in one place.
Yeah, I don't mean to disrespect the current modular. I think it's a vast improvement, and I really appreciate it. But noting it's temporary.
It's a temporary space.
It is temporary. We shouldn't have a whole school sitting in the playground. So that's the only thing. But yes, it is a vast improvement. Just really quickly, I saw that there are additional items for remote learning support for next year, which is good. I think that makes a lot of sense, but just wondering if the ESSER III funds could potentially be applied to cover that.
It is possible, and we actually thought about that, and as we get our allocations and the parameters for the use, that might be a place the board wants to go. But for now, we put it into the general fund, not knowing what those uses will be. And I should have said this as well. We are planning, our plans right now, our proposed plans, are for a remote learning option, across the board, K through 12. So 6 through 12, it would be basically live streaming if a student is scheduled into remote learning. It wouldn't be an open, option as we've had this year. It would be a team getting together, the parent, the school staff, administration, and deciding it's in the best interest of the student to be remote. So next year, we're really looking at our students being in person and getting back to that 100%, but recognizing that there's always a small group of students that might benefit, at least temporarily, from that kind of instructional model, and that we would have that available. And then for the elementary, this would be, the support basis for students that would be remote.
Great, yeah, and I didn't mean for that to say, I didn't want there to be 100% in person. I really do. Sorry, I just have one or two more. Any idea why the decrease in enrollment for GHS?
That's something that was actually projected by the planning decisions reports that we had as well. And some of it is just, a larger class leaving the high school and the smaller class coming in. Those numbers will go up over the next few years as the elementary numbers catch up. But right now, the high school is in a lull, and the elementary has been increasing for this will be the 5th year now.
Yeah.
Elementary increases.
Actually, just two more. First, the $350K warrant, that makes a ton of sense. But just wondering if we took a look at our first COVID tranche spending, does that match up with what we were thinking? Just making sure, is that enough or not? I don't know.
For what was that, Mike?
The warrant, the $350K contingency.
Yeah, I hope between the ESSER 3 funds, the ESSER 2 funds, and the contingency in our budget, that we will be able to be okay and we won't have to go there. I think it's just in the event that we've learned from this pandemic, we don't always know what we don't know yet. This has been a very unique situation for all of us. In the event that we have to use it, it's really more of a safety net only. I'm very hopeful that we don't ever have to go there, but I don't also not want to have the ability to go there if we need to.
Yeah. And the final question is the school bus lease to purchase. It's not a comment for this year, but for the future. As we start to think about that, I would hope we would give thought to electric school buses. They're becoming more prevalent, the cost is dropping, and there hopefully will be state incentives and support for that. And so that would be a long-term cost savings for the district. So no, I know not for this budget, but as we change over the bus stock, I would hope we would give thought to that.
We actually, we've had conversations about electric buses in the past, and we've met with the Cumberland climate team as well and talked to them about it. They brought information to us. And the only thing that stopped us was the cost. It was, I think it was $350,000 at the time that we talked to them, and then we can purchase a regular bus for $110,000 or so. So it was a huge difference in cost. But if the cost drops and the incentives increase, that would definitely be something we'd be interested in doing.
Yeah. Thank you for your work on this. It's really good work. Thank you.
Kate, did you have some questions or comments?
Yeah, Mike, thank you. You asked a few of my questions. So this is like the first year that I haven't been on the Finance Committee in quite a while. And so today when I was reflecting on what I was hoping to see from you, Jeff, and the Finance Committee was, I was hoping to see a district that was ready to open and that was going to be putting the bulk of its funds in instructions, facility, and transportation, because we know that that is what has been most difficult about COVID. And I think this absolutely hits that mark. I think this budget is really reflective of you and the Finance Committee being responsive to COVID and keeping the absolute end goal of opening our schools fully just right front and center. So I'm really impressed. And I know that $30 per 100,000 in Cumberland and $23 per 100,000 in North Yarmouth, it's real money to a lot of people, especially as we've been hit with the pandemic and everyone has in some way, shape, or form been affected financially. But it is reasonable. It is not hundreds of dollars. Well, I shouldn't say that, it might be that for some. So I think you have really walked a very fine line of meeting the needs, getting our students back in there, making sure that we have wiggle room if things pop up, because we know this pandemic keeps changing. And it's been at a reasonable cost. So I'm really impressed. I know that I will have questions that pop up at the next workshop, but so far, so good. And great job to the Finance Committee and Mr. Poulin and you, Jeff. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Does anyone else have any comments? I'm sure Kevin, would you like to speak? Only because you're the finance chair,
'Cause I was
not because you
twitching
always
over
talk.
Well, I don't want to step on.
I'll just say that, like Kate, I used to serve on finance for a long time and stepped off this year, but this really came out, beyond my expectations. And, I didn't think we could get here when this year started. So congratulations to you guys who put this together. A lot of thought went in, work into it, I know. And I'm sure I'll have lots of little persnickety questions as we get into the budget workshop, but we'll let those go for now.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be very anxious. So a couple things. Great work this evening, Jeff. We are fortunate to have a finance committee with some deep expertise. Jennifer Stewart always asks the right questions at the right time, and Tyler has done a spectacular job of ensuring that we're staying well aligned with strategy. There's a few things within this budget that I would like to point out, and the first is that strategic plan alignment. It would be natural to start looking at things at a very base or tactical level, but you continue to elevate that back toward those things that the district said over the past 3 years are most important to moving us forward to where we need to go. And I think that you did that very well. And your comment about the highest and best use of dollars and staff absolutely resonates with me and should resonate with anybody in the community, because you weren't looking for new dollars to do those things that are critically important to ensuring the educational experience for students in the coming years. It isn't going to be easier for this growing student body to get what they need, and I like where you were investing. You put up with a lot of stuff from us. And I would like to express our appreciation for the way that you would hear us when we made kind of direct requests, and then you came back with information and options as you continue to distill down through all of those priorities where everybody wants a little bit of something. But this budget, it is responsible. When you look at the things that were not funded, it is very restrained. And most importantly, Jeff, I think that this is well focused. You and Mr. Poulin have done a very, very good job of managing the finances in a difficult year.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin sums it up well. I just want to make note that as a finance committee, some of the COVID relief funds came to us very quickly and had an extremely difficult deadline and a lot of parameters that we were put in. So there was a lot of challenges in the beginning, and it made me nervous for this part because I didn't know where we were going to be based off of the year that we were in. But as Kevin and other board members have shared, that we are in a good place, and we hope if people have questions or are not understanding parts of this, it's a lot to understand, it's a lot to digest, it's a lot to figure out how it affects your student at home and the things that you are struggling with. I hope that you reach out. I hope you continue to follow the budget process, because this is just the beginning. And it relates to the bigger topic for tonight, which is getting back to school. So I hope people continue to participate in this part as well, because they're all connected. So with that, seeing that there's no more comments, I'll get back to you, Jeff, for another presentation.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to listen to me tonight a little bit. Sorry about that. So I also just wanted to thank the Finance Committee and Scott Poulin especially in his office for all the amazing work, and our district leadership team also for all of the work on the budget. The budget is a huge production. It starts actually in the fall. We start our budget process in November, and it really doesn't wrap up until June. And hopefully it wraps up in June. Sometimes it's July like last year. So the proposal tonight is getting to green, and I know this has been a topic of interest for many people in our community, and as well as across the country. Things are, after a year, starting to accelerate with the vaccine being in place. There's a lot of questions that are coming up, and a lot of feelings that it's time to reinvigorate the process for getting back to green. I think what we've tried to do is to be as safe as possible, follow the state rules on this, and that's what I'll be presenting tonight. But I also have a proposal at the end of this presentation for the board to consider tonight as well. So getting to green, common ground, all of us want our kids back. We know that it's the best place for them to be back at school 5 days a week, and we acknowledge that learning has been diminished because of the pandemic, of which we have all had to live with for the last year. But we've also made sure that health and safety procedures were in place so that we could at least accomplish the hybrid model of some in-person learning this year for all of our students, knowing that there's been ups and downs to that process. So it's my sincere hope on behalf of the entire school community that we can get our kids back in school full-time as soon as it is safe and permissible for us to do that. And that's been our goal since September 8th. Actually, it's been the goal since March 13th, 2020, when we closed for 2 weeks, and I thought that was it, and then we had to close, then the governor closed us for 3 months, and then we came back and thought things would be okay in September. We'd be back to normal, and then here we are. But I do believe now, for the first time in the year, just from a personal standpoint, that things feel different to me. Things are starting to move in the direction that we need to move in as a country. I think the vaccination is already starting to go in the direction that it needs to in order for us to get back to for our students to be in school 5 days a week. So the current context for us, these are just things that I have presented in the past, but I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with this, or at least understands it. The state physical distancing rule, which is outlined by the Maine CDC and the Department of Education, is still in effect. And that does require that students are at least 3 to 6 feet for most of their day in their classrooms, common areas, school buses. We use 3 feet in most areas, in most classrooms, and in most spaces in our district. So we have large amounts of students in our schools. There are many schools in the state of Maine that have much smaller enrollments in their schools. We have consolidated schools, so we have schools anywhere from 650 students at our high school to 800 students at our middle school. Right now, our school district, as most people know, is the CDC has given us the title of outbreak for our entire district, not just one of our schools. And we've had this since January 22nd. An outbreak simply means that there's been a considerable amount of cases within a 14-day period, as determined by the CDC. And as of today, we have 77 cases that have occurred in our district where someone has tested positive. So 77 times that we know someone associated with our school community has tested positive, and it's been documented since September 8th. We also do not have a full staff roster right now. As I mentioned earlier, many of our staff are still on childcare and medical leaves because other districts are also in the hybrid model. If they live somewhere else and work here, or they live here and work here, most everyone is still in a hybrid model, and it makes it challenging for our staff to have daycare available or childcare available for their students, especially young students that are also remote on those days. So that's why we have these situations in our district right now. which is understandable, and a lot of businesses have responded in kind or have had their staff work remotely. Obviously, we are an organization that can't have our staff, for the most part, work remotely. So just to give you an idea, we talk about physical distancing a lot and what does 3 to 6 feet look like. And, you know, this is an example of what a typical classroom at each level would look like. So at the top, that's a middle school 6-8 classroom. And you can see how students are distanced at the tables that were already there existing, and just how things have happened with a cohort. So we have half as many students in a classroom right now on any given day. On the bottom left-hand side, that's a high school classroom. That's actually a live stream classroom that's occurring in social studies, where students are interacting and debating with students who are at home. You can see the physical distancing, and it doesn't show the whole classroom there. But and in the bottom right-hand side, we have a 4th and 5th grade classroom, and you can see students are doing an activity standing up at their desks. But students are required right now to be at their space. We don't do group work. We don't have tables. We're not doing hands-on projects with kids working together, and kids are fully masked all the time when they're in the classroom. I don't have a photo of Mabel I. Wilson School in this, but similar setup as well. And at Mabel I. Wilson School, where students are used to being at tables completely, this has been a really different experience for students and teachers to be at individual desks. So the current context of our district, just to give you more background, again, since January 22nd, we've had 77 cases where someone has tested positive since September. That is, you know, over 200% more than our neighboring 2 districts right next to us. So 3 times the amount. So getting to green, what does that mean? March to June, just to give a historical viewpoint of last year, a year ago, we were 100% remote for 3 months, as was every district in the state of Maine. September of 2020, we reopened partially, we reopened fully, but partially in person, so that we were able to do that, and that's where we're at today, obviously. And we're looking forward, building a budget and building the plans that will get us to 100% back in person as soon as we can. The big question mark for us is the state's 3 to 6 foot distancing rule, having a full staff back, roster back, which means other districts also need to not be in hybrid. And these are not requirements. The only requirement we have is the one in bold, which is the state distancing rule, but also keeping in mind that we have a high number of cases. And we just need to keep that in mind as we're planning. So the 3 pillars of getting to green, I introduced these at the last meeting. I'll go into them a little bit more tonight. There's three areas that that the leadership team has looked at, and that we believe we need to make sure we cover in order to thoroughly get us to green 100%. Health, safety, and organizational integrity, a focus on instruction, and social and emotional health and wellness. Right now, we have a team of folks in our district, the school psychologist, the mental health specialist, social workers, guidance counselors, et cetera, who have been working on the social and emotional health and wellness in getting to green, knowing that things are going to have to be looked at as we transition back. Focusing on instruction, the budget tonight I presented has many new instructional positions in there to help us get back to green, and not just get back to green, but to rebound with our students. We know instruction works, and we know that we need to support our kids no matter what, and not say that we had a year of a pandemic or 18 months that we went through, but know that we have to hit the ground running. And then health, safety, and organizational integrity, and that's a lot of the kind of the details that go into helping a school and a school district run safely, smoothly. Looking at protocols, in the fall, there'll still be some protocols. Still, we assume, we've been told, that masks will still be required well into 2022, according to the federal CDC. So those are things we'll have to make sure we're planning for. Master schedules may look slightly different. Class sizes and physical distancing, there might be some things that we need to continue doing. Cleaning, staffing assignments, bus routes, looking at our lunch schedules. I think one of the things kids have missed the most is being able to eat in the lunchroom. We certainly want them back doing that. We've transitioned a little bit to some common eating, but we're going to be continuing to do that, obviously, as we continue into the spring. We'll have kids eating outdoors this spring as well as part of it. Storage, furniture, and space. We have a lot of things stored away in our buildings, also in storage containers, because we had to pull at least half of the furniture and equipment out of the classrooms in order to be in a hybrid model. We had to get stuff out of rooms. Playground. We've only had so many kids on a playground at one time. How do we have 100% of the kids during a recess period back on the playground safely? Drop-off and pickup routines. We've changed some of those routines. Some of you that are Mabel I. Wilson parents know that the pickup and drop-off routine changed dramatically this past year, and those are things that we have to keep considering as we go into the new year and into the rest of this year. And then outdoor learning is something that we've been pushing and talking about all year long, even in the winter. So the recommendation I'm bringing to the board tonight is for us to begin the public process. We have had an internal process so far of looking at what does it take to get to green, getting to green. So my recommendation is that in light of a lot of the interest in the community, especially from parents and groups of parents that would like us to be a little bit more public about this process, is I'm recommending tonight that the board put together or form a ad hoc advisory group that would be charged with bringing to the board of directors we have a pandemic response plan, and whether it's revising that or bringing something different to the board that transitions the district to green as soon as it is practicable and safe to do so within the parameters of the health and safety mandates that we have in place. So whenever that is relaxed, or if there's tweaks to the schedule that we have in place right now, are there other opportunities that we can be looking at in order to increase in-person learning during this school year? And if not this school year, and this will be up to the group to make a recommendation, definitely getting us in a position to hit the ground running in September with some other ideas. So the proposal tonight for the board is to consider forming this ad hoc group, which would have a wide membership. There'd be over 20 people in this group. 2 high school students, 2 board members, 4 staff members, 4 parents or guardians, 4 building administrators, and these are all 1 per school, which is where the number 4 comes up. The district physician, 1 of our school nurses, a member of our mental health team. We have 3 district office administrators in the district for finance, operations, HR, instructional support, and academic services. Proposing all 3 of them are on this. And then I would also sit on this group as ex officio. So that's the proposal I'm bringing tonight for the membership of this group that would help bring a recommendation to the board of directors. So a timeline, we would put out, if the board accepts this tonight, a timeline for parents to be involved. We've asked the Education Association if they would help select the 4 staff members who would be involved. For parents, we would have a very short 1-minute form that we'll put out in the morning on Tuesday and send it out with some communication if the board accepts this proposal tonight. And we would just ask, because we're trying to put this together as quickly and be responsive to the public process, that parents that are interested get back to us no later than the beginning of Friday at 8 o'clock, so that we can work on that Friday and get our membership in order to let people know and hopefully have our first meeting a week from today at 6 o'clock at night, and that would be the first scheduled meeting. And then the group would decide after that what the meeting schedule would be. And then, again, as part of this timeline, that there would be an initial progress report brought to the board on April 5th at their board meeting with some sort of report on the progress so far, full or partial recommendations, if any, that are available at that time from the group, and then what are the next steps for this advisory group going forward. So that's just my proposed timeline for the board to consider tonight. And that actually that's the proposal. And I can answer any questions about the proposal itself if people have questions.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, we're going to hold public comment, and then I'd like to move the item for action up to follow the public comment. So I'll ask for a motion in a second, and then the board can discuss so that we have public comment included in our discussion. So I'll open it up to those in the audience to approach the podium. I'm going to give 3 minutes to everybody. I'm sorry if I have to interrupt you. It is not anything I want to do, but I'm just trying to be consistent as we move through this.
Good evening. I'm Joan Guild. I'm a Cumberland resident, a Greeley High School teacher, and here tonight representing teachers and the MSAD 51 Education Association. I spoke 2 weeks ago and had 2 big asks, and advocacy for vaccinations for educators and input from teachers should there be a change ahead due to changing guidelines from the CDC or the Maine DOE. Tonight, I am very pleased to share the reality that so many staff members have had their first shot, and this is one solid step in the direction towards a more safe in-person learning. So tonight, I'm here to say you don't have to advocate for us on that anymore. Yay. My second ask was about teacher input. Teacher input remains critical to the successes of the remainder of this year and beyond. To be clear to folks here tonight and members of the community listening at home, the school board and administrators have considered input from those of us in the classroom, and we are thankful for that. This year has required tremendous out-of-the-box thinking of ways to educate children within the restrictions imposed upon our schools. The educators, together with their principals, haven't stopped rethinking instruction, adjusting and readjusting to new technology and to new classroom configurations. We connect to students virtually, and we make the most of in-person learning every time we are with our students. Even after a year of upheaval, teachers continue to rise to meet the ever-changing and unexpected needs of our students. We've been working in person with students since August, and we are so proud of the relationships that we have established with our students. We are proud of the work that has been accomplished this year because of the support that we have received from you. And so, thank you for your commitment and dedication to our students. And this commitment and dedication and collaboration isn't going anywhere. If state and federal restrictions allow us to go to more in-person learning, we're going to continue to work together. Not a person in this room asked for the challenges of the last year, and together we can work toward more in-person learning. And to promote instructional strategies and consistencies that are best for our students for the remainder of the year. We look forward to positive dialoguing with families, with our students, with the health professionals, the administration, and the board members to lead to the best possible outcomes for our students pre-K through our graduating class of 2021. Thank you for all of your hard work. We know this is complex. There is no easy way to get back to anything that we can consider normal, so thank you again.
Thank you. Anyone else is welcome to come and speak.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Orlando. I live in Cumberland. My husband and I spoke at the March 1st board meeting, and we wanted to follow up. At the last meeting, we provided our experience of what this year has been like for our son, Henry, who's in kindergarten at Maple I. To summarize, we discussed the regression in his behavior, education, and socially and emotionally. He started the year off like a warrior, knowing the hybrid learning, mask wearing, not playing with friends or toys was temporary. However, when that started becoming his reality, he didn't want to go to school, do virtual learning, play outside, and said he hated learning in school. Henry needs routine and structure and a sense of normalcy in a learning environment where he can strive versus what we've seen, which is regression. Yes, as parents, we play a role in this, but no matter how hard we try, we can't replace the importance of having a routine and structure in place. Right now, Henry being home while we work full-time is not a routine or benefiting him educationally, socially, or emotionally, which is a lot of what we count on from schools. He's been 3 times in person since February break. This is unacceptable for education. Henry's not the only one suffering. We've seen that thousands of families are in a similar situation, and I want to share a couple of parent testimonies. One parent wrote, "Just in our own home, our first grader has shown signs of depression due to COVID school issues and social isolation. He is 6, and he's even talked about suicide, which has been tragic for us." Another parent wrote, "My senior last year, class of 2020, just gave up with 1 credit to go and never graduated. The psychological effect created a what does it matter attitude, and he never got his diploma, no matter how hard we encouraged him to finish." These are just 2 parents' testimonies. There are plenty more if you'd like me to compile them. Kids' identities are built in school with their peers, sports, clubs, and teachers. We're depriving them of this, and their mental health is suffering. And for what? Kids are not the ones causing the spread, so I honestly don't know, but they've sacrificed enough. It's clear that our hurdle is space, as long as the state doesn't lift the distancing requirement. We need a solution for this. We can rent space in town. We can utilize the outdoors. We aren't asking for you to break CDC guidelines. We're asking you to be creative. I, for one, am okay if we need to deviate from our standard curriculum to accommodate this. Let's be creative with lessons. Teach leadership skills, teamwork, make it fun. Kids are going to be asked about their experience through the pandemic 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. Let's give them something positive to talk about, how hard the school has pushed to get them back versus keeping it status quo and having this time in their life be negative throughout. Other districts and states are making it work and also acknowledging the negative impacts this year has had on our kids. The last item I want to address is to the members of the board. I know you've all worked really hard and you're exhausted. I want to reiterate how important it is to our community to take this burden off our kids and get back to school. The COVID cases have not been coming from or spreading in the schools. The communication that we're in an outbreak in 200% of our neighboring communities sounds alarming, but our numbers are minuscule when compared to our neighboring states that are making it happen. We've elected you as our board members to be our voice and represent our community and education and well-being of our kids. If that means we need more space to meet requirements, we need to help find more space. If we need to go to the state to fight the distance requirement, then we need to go to the state. But we can't keep shifting this burden to our kids.
Amanda, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, that's good, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Matt Orlando, Cumberland, Maine. Amanda said a lot of what I feel, so I'm not going to repeat that. I did just want to share that I think as parents, we're obviously vocal. We're seeing what's going on in the home. But it's not that we're saying, and I know that earlier there was a comment about how hard the teachers are working. And I can't speak for all the parents. We know that. We see that. I know from a planning and an administration perspective, it's got to be a nightmare. So I'm not saying that I have a problem with that. I think what we're struggling with now is we're seeing numbers improve. We're seeing other districts, we're seeing other states with worse numbers go back to school. And then as parents, we're seeing what's happening in a hybrid model, which is basically there's no routine when they're at home. There's a reason we want our kids to go to school. It's because teachers are great at teaching. And as hard as Amanda and I try, there's a reason we're not teachers. And so it's not a reflection of the hard work that's being done or not being done. I know there's a lot of hard work being done. Our thing is really the distance requirement, if that's the sticking point, whether it's local, like Amanda said, or whether it's all of us getting together as leaders and taking this on our back for our kids to get us where we need to get, because we need to get to a point where they're full-time as soon as possible. And we definitely can't get into the fall and have the distance requirement be what it is. And in closing, because I know there's a lot of people to speak, but with this proposal, one thing I might recommend is have the staff selected by the teachers within the school and not the Education Association. Because in our conversations that we've had since we presented, one of the themes I've found is that there are a lot of teachers who want to see the kids back in school full-time as much as we do. And I don't think the Education Association's kicking the can to the end of December is really a fair reflection of how all teachers and parents feel. And one of the things I'll leave you with is we've got first responders, healthcare workers, people in retail, builders, real estate. My father's a postal worker who delivers to 400 houses. He's over 60 a day and has been without a vaccination. Why then do teachers have to reach herd immunity before we can relax the distance requirement? So that's my challenge to us, is not to be parents against teachers or parents against administrators. I'd like us all to be going up there to Augusta to say, look, the numbers are getting better, and we need our kids back in school, and we need it soon. And we can't wait, and we can't hope that the conditions are just right, that everything works out, and we can go to school. We need to make sure we can go to school. And so that's my perspective, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Haley Stewart, and I'm a freshman at Greeley High School. I'm here to speak tonight because I want to stay a student at Greeley High School and get back into school 5 days a week. I have lived in Cumberland and attended Greeley schools my entire life. Greeley is only allowing us to go 2 full days a week. Teachers have told me we are only learning about half the content needed. Science is a big struggle for me. I need this content for what I want to do in life. I want to be a veterinarian, and I have only gotten about half the curriculum I should this year. In a normal year, I would see each classroom teacher every other day for an average of 20 times a month. This year, I see my teachers once a week, equaling just 4 times a month. This creates stress for me and cannot be sustained long term. Recently, I have explored the option of going to Cheverus, not because I want to leave Greeley, but more because I cannot handle the hybrid model offered by Greeley much longer, both mentally and physically. In December, I suffered from medical issues that were later diagnosed as a stress ulcer. Trying to manage time for schoolwork and homework while being home instead of at school on a normal day has been an extreme challenge. The inability to talk to teachers during a regular class meeting makes this more difficult. Sports have been a great outlet for me, and I am thankful for the soccer and basketball seasons despite their limited schedule and lack of playoffs. It's odd being able to practice and play with the same kids that I cannot see at school on a regular basis. Playing travel softball, I hear from my teammates that many of their schools in southern Maine are in school 5 days a week. It's very frustrating that my school has not put more importance on and effort into getting the students of Greeley back to 5 days a week. Half of Maine schools have been attending 5 days a week this entire year. The Mitchell Institute says that as of 2017, almost 60% of the students who go to college stay in Maine. Close to 30% stay in New England, where the majority of schools have been open or are opening this spring to 5 days of in-school person learning. If I were to stay in Maine to go to college, I would be behind half of those students academically when starting college because of our hybrid model. If I were to stay in New England, I would be behind the majority of students coming from the same area. Either path puts me at an academic disadvantage to my peers. The toll on the mental health of students stuck in hybrid will be something people study for years. I can say with certainty that the effects are significant. This year has been a struggle for everyone, but it seems from my perspective, students are having to give up the most and lose out on things that we cannot get back. School should not be one of those things. I want to stay a student at Greeley High School, but mentally I can't do hybrid much longer. So I'm asking you to please work harder and come up with a better solution on space so that me and my classmates can get back to our education.
Hi, my name is Mia Stewart, and I am an 8th grader at Greeley Middle School. I'm speaking for myself as well as one of my classmates. As much as we hate to say it, concurrent learning needs to go. It is affecting students and it shows. We all know that getting us back into school needs to be a top priority. You have the authority and you need to use it. As educators, you know that teaching is the most important thing. We need more school without a doubt, and it feels like even if we shout, you won't hear our cries for help. Students learn better when we are together, and we may not remember each other forever, but the impact that we have is important. Everything that we are doing is foreign and unknown, and I know that it is hard for everyone, but we have to be shown that anything is possible when we try and we make it happen. Students need to be back, and that is a fact, so please get us back on track. Over the course of the past 9 years, I have been here at Greeley, and when I enter the school in the morning, I feel at home, and I know it. It's a feeling in my bones. I feel proud to be a Ranger, to look at my school and say, this is where I want to be. This has taken a toll on many students' mental health. Stress and anxiety are two extremely large problems in teens already, and not being in school is making it hard to balance and stay steady. Basketball players practice multiple times a week, but drama can't be in this beautiful facility. I'm a member of the drama club, and I love it. Please take my concerns to heart and understand that being together is better than being apart.
Thank you. Are there others? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Cohen, and I'm from Cumberland and have a kindergartner and a fourth grader. I'm a concerned parent and a certified elementary teacher for 18 years and a resident taxpayer. I'm a huge advocate for my children's education and incredibly supportive of our amazing teachers who day in and day out do what is best for their students simply because they care so much. I'm also here because I'm concerned about our children's mental health. My husband and I have slowly watched our kindergarten son's behavior and enthusiasm for learning decline over the course of this school year. As you know, the first line of the mission statement for MSAD 51 reads to guide all students as they acquire enthusiasm for learning. The current hybrid model our school is operating under is failing our children and parents, and it extinguishes their very enthusiasm for learning. Beyond this mission statement, your first strategic goal is to engage, empower, and inspire. I think we can all agree that engagement is lacking, and our children are not inspired through this hybrid learning model. It is time to figure out how to get students back to 5 days of in-person learning instruction so we can all live up to the mission statement and the strategic goals that were set forth by the district. I have to tell you that I cringed at the last board meeting when each administrator, with the exception of Chris Hoffman, who only asked for time and support, shared their ultimate wish list and reasons why we can't. Collectively, your leaders asked for 400 plus new desks, 50 additional teachers, and 43 more classrooms. Were teachers asked for their solutions on how to better manage space? I'm guessing not. Teachers will help you find a way, but you have to ask them. They are problem solvers. I think it is also worth pointing out that MSAD 51 is often compared to other districts when it comes to academics and sports and other successes. Yet you repeatedly tell parents and the press that we can't possibly be compared to other schools when it comes to returning to in-person instruction. This is a double standard and it's unacceptable. The excuses need to stop. You need to get creative. Dr. Seuss wrote a book called The Zacks. Due to their stubbornness, they refuse to go in any direction other than their own, and in the end, they make no progress. Please don't be a Zack. Finally, our district's budget and resources are plentiful. We have well beyond that of other districts. If you don't make any changes now with a definitive plan that is executed within the coming weeks, you will be not living up to the mission statement and strategic goals set forth by our district. We're no longer at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. We must find a way forward to implement 5 days of in-person learning now so that our children can receive the education they so desperately need and deserve, and that we all pay for. As a board, please step up and do what is right for the students of MSAD 51. If you're ever in need of a certified substitute, I'll happily volunteer my time if it means keeping our students open and our schools open. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Susie, and I am the parent of an 8th grader at Greeley Middle School. We are extremely disappointed that our district will keep the hybrid model for the remainder of the school year. It has been shown that children are not a high risk of spreading COVID, or if they do contract the illness, they are unlikely to become extremely ill or die. Over the past year, it has been reported that out of 330 million Americans, approximately 130 to 250 children have died of COVID. Compare your average school year in which 500 children die of influenza. Is this a reason to keep our children out of school, to keep them depressed, and to keep them away from their beloved schools and teachers? I would like to address the plight of parents through this pandemic. Our teachers have rightfully received praise for the work that they have done to keep this going. I would also like to recognize our parents who have literally turned themselves inside out to make this work this year. Each time we thought that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, there was not, and the goalposts were moved. With teacher vaccination and with teachers being moved to the front of the line, it appeared that things would finally begin to improve and we would be able to begin to move more towards 5 days a week. And it's becoming clearly apparent to everyone that that's not the case. What concerns me the most is that I do not see a commitment to 5 days a week this fall. And that would be completely unacceptable. My last point is that unfortunately we have many children in our district who will be attending private schools this fall. These are children who have parents who have the means to do private schooling. Our children should not have to pay $20,000 a year to go to Sherbus High School when we have a beautiful and wonderful school here in Cumberland. I would like to point out the inequity of making it impossible for our children to go 5 days a week, while other children with means are able to go for 5. The parents in our school district are determined to advocate for their children. We will not stop, and make no mistake, we will not stop until our children are back in school 5 days a week. We need creativity, and we need to look outside the box to find a way to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Kim Stewart, and I'm a Cumberland resident. And I'm going to first express my extreme level of pride in my 2 children for taking it upon themselves to voice how difficult this school year has been. I'm here asking the board to hire an outside source to assist in getting our schools open 5 days a week. It is clear that thus far, the administration has not been able to come up with a plan to make this happen, and it needs to happen now. We need a clear timeline with goals and dates assigned to each goal in order to succeed. Teachers are getting vaccinated and kids are not spreaders. They should be back in school 5 days a week starting after April break. And I am a parent. Let me decide what is safe for my children. If you want, there will be releases signed. Let them attend school and give the option to live stream to those who are not comfortable in doing so. This has gone on too long. I am, in fact, begging you to please listen to your staff. There are multiple who have spoken out, asking others to give ideas because they fear retaliation for doing so for themselves. The fact that they have that fear, I would say, is another issue entirely. But I wish you could give an open forum for those staff to really be able to express their opinions. Listen to the parents. They have given lots of ideas, and I know that you have been inundated with emails, but they are there to help. And please listen to your students, both who have spoken tonight, who spoke 2 weeks ago, and who have spoken out every day since this pandemic started, that they need to be in school. Consistency in a student's education is such a strong piece of a person's mental health. And it should be clear after the presentation 2 weeks ago that the pandemic is taking far more of a toll on our children's mental health than it is their physical one. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Hale. I'm a resident of Cumberland, and I'm also a math teacher here at Greeley High School. And, you know, as I talk to my students about how it's going for them, I know it's a struggle. It's a struggle as a parent, and I know it's a struggle. It's got to be a struggle for our administrators and our school board members. I cannot imagine the weight that you carry as you try to make these decisions. And just from one human to another, I have so much compassion for what you all are undertaking, and I'm guessing that none of you knew that you were going to be faced with these decisions. You are being asked to put physical safety against mental health, and you just can't separate them, and one is not more important than the other. And so just with a ton of compassion and gratitude, thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing and considering all of the different perspectives that are brought to your attention. I cannot imagine the amount of information that you must sort and sift through and decide which one is more important than another, because it's just, in these times, it's almost impossible to decide and to pit the physical health versus the mental health. You can't pit them against each other. The students, I would like to thank my students who I have. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you in the class. When the school board first presented the hybrid model, I was petrified about how that was going to work, because as a high school teacher, I think about content. How am I going to prepare my kids to be ready to sit in that college classroom so that they can then go out into the world and be productive members of society? And I was really worried about that. But as we started going through the year, we hit those learning curves and worked with the students, worked with the teachers. It was amazing what we were able to accomplish when students were in front of us, and I cherish every single moment that I have with them. And what I have seen in my students is tremendous engagement. And they will say, I want to be here. And when they are there, they're really taking in what is happening in the classroom, and I have not had that experience prior to this year. Students are not getting lost in my classes, and perhaps I shouldn't, admit that in this public forum, but when you're faced with a class of 25 kids, sometimes it's impossible to keep track of everything that's going on in a class period. The other day, we were doing factoring with quadratic equations, and I had 7 kids in front of me, and I know each line on that piece of paper that those students wrote. I know where their errors were in thinking. I know the ones that got it immediately, and I could give them a new one that was more difficult and more challenging. The richness that happens in the class is just, it's phenomenal. And I know that outside of class, I don't get to see that, and I know that there's a whole other side that I don't get to see when they go home, and I hear that, there's no structure, and I wish that that weren't the case.
Joyce, I just want to tell you that your 3 minutes has come.
Okay, so thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Nato. I live in Cumberland with my husband and 2 daughters who attend Mabel I. Wilson. To say this year has been a tremendous battle for all of us is an understatement. I can't imagine being in your shoes during this unprecedented time, making clearly very difficult decisions. But I'm here to share my story, which represents many other local families and parents who are just way too burnt out to keep up with the ins and outs and to come to these meetings. Not that I'm not burnt out, but I was able to come here and represent, I would say, hundreds of parents. My kids love school and seeing their friends. They enjoy collaborating in person with their teachers, with teachers and their peers. My kindergartner was so excited to finally attend real school this fall. And I'd get her off the bus and ask her how school was, and she would just light up. She was just so excited. She's very sociable anyway. No idea where she gets that. But she, would tell me all about the friends that she met and things that she's learning, and she was just so excited to go. Here we are, 6 months later, mid-March, and this little excited, happy-go-lucky girl's desire to go to school has completely diminished. To see this regression kills me and her father. My eldest daughter has acquired a fear of germs and a high level of anxiety. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Activities they usually enjoy have been completely stripped away, and they feel like they're being punished. And apparently they are. They appear to be the pawns behind some ungodly reason as to why our local school district isn't exploring creative ways to go green now, just like some of our surrounding school districts. It seems there's a lack of transparency. As a parent, it's hard not knowing the full reasoning behind your decisions. I believe that you're doing your best. I truly do. But I also believe that you can do better. Nobody is asking you to break the CDC rules. We're asking you to get creative with space, with staffing, and everything else you can. I'd like to hear how you have advocated for the kids with the governor and the DOE to drop distance requirements. It's time to get creative and utilize a community of skillful and eager parents. Please make a deal on the 3-foot rule. Parents would be happy to come in and measure every square inch of the schools. Lunch, if that's an issue. Let's rent a wedding tent and send the kids outside for all meals, snacks included. I would be happy to manage this effort. I have a background in event planning. I got you covered. I truly believe that when there's a will, there's a way. Time is crucial, and you have an opportunity to do what's right. I'm hopeful that you will advocate for our kids with the governor and the DOE to drop the distance requirements as soon as possible. And after all is said and done with the pandemic, one thing is for sure. This generation of kids will be the most adaptable, independent, brave, and tech-savvy people we know. The world is lucky to have these brilliant kids who will lead the way. But right now, you have an opportunity to fix things and make it right, and to finish off the school year strong. We know we can do better together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Katie Chiazzo, and my husband and I, we have 2 children in middle school. While seeing the slides presented today, I realized that the high-level strategy and the value proposition for the school stemmed towards those skills for life. What I see in our kids' curriculum, especially on those hybrid days, is most times a half a day of learning. School is becoming secondary in their life, and unfortunately, that is not setting them up for success or providing those skills for life while looking forward to secondary education and jobs, as noted in the presentation today. Secondly, I want to share that depressions with the students that we're seeing at home is very real. We have had to sit down and have those tough conversations with our kids after monitoring their text messages from friends around suicide. The lack of sports and clubs and just time overall spent with their friends is impacting our children, and I'm not sure how much visibility is shared. I understand there's visibility of mental health and the awareness, but the actual communications that are being passed along amongst our children in our community, that I'm not sure. I am going to share my own personal experience here. I did lose my brother to suicide. I know firsthand in real life what it does to families and what it does to our communities. Having to have these conversations with my children is very surreal. I want to echo what the parents have said. Our children do not need to continue to carry this burden. I'm hopeful we can work on a solution together. Again, I have the utmost respect for the teachers and everyone in this community, but again, our children don't need to carry that burden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Geary, North Yarmouth, and I'm also a senior here at Greeley. So yeah, I'm a senior, which means I'm part of the COVID class, the class that is going to unfortunately have to graduate through all this. And I just kind of want to voice my opinion about how I would like to get back into school 5 days a week, at least for a little bit. One thing we did today in advisories, we actually calculated how long seniors have here. It's 2 months total time, 60 days. That's including the break and when we get out for senior projects and all that stuff. Basically, all I want is just a little time to come back to school and actually be able to experience what it was like and be able to see all my friends and stuff like that. Because once we graduate, that's it. Half of them I'll probably never see again. And another thing about us being in school only 2 days a week, I'm gonna just spoil this for you guys. We're trying to build you guys a news channel in my video production class. My goodness, is that really hard. It's been 2 months and we're not even done making the intro. Another thing I want to do is I at least want to thank the parents and the guidance staff for trying to make this year bearable for us. I mean, they've helped out with stuff like the senior breakfast and all that stuff. That's been fun. I definitely appreciate the fact that some people are trying. No offense. And another thing, I've said this a lot to people before. I've gone to this school for 13 years now. I am going to be graduating, and for so long, I have essentially hyped this year up. I thought, this is going to be the greatest year of my life. I'm going to go out with a bang. And yeah, then this happens. And honestly, it's just, it's a huge letdown, and I think everyone kind of agrees with that. It's just been pretty much the complete opposite. We've missed out on half the things that I thought I was going to actually be able to enjoy from this year. We're definitely going to be going out with something, and it's not a bang.
Thank you.
All right, well, hard to follow all that. My name is Hannah Berry. I live in Cumberland. I have a sophomore in high school, 2 7th graders, and a 4th grader. It's no secret my 4th grader I chose to pull in the summer of last year because there was no way he could manage hybrid learning. He's a student and a learner that cannot work with technology. He needs to work with his hands. So he's doing wonderfully, but for the record, it's $26,000 a year, not short, not a small amount of money. And I've had to go back to work to pay for it, which I'm happy to do. I do have the means. I have a degree, I got a job, I solved the problem. I have 3 other children, as I said. They would be here. I wanted to thank Haley and Mia for speaking. My kids would be here, but they too nervous, too depressed, can barely get them out of the house. So I'm speaking on their behalf. I am ready to help. All of these people are ready to help. We don't need to hear why we can't, and we don't really need another committee. We have one, and we're ready to help. We would like to get back to green as soon as possible. And just let us know what you need. We love this community. We love the schools. We need our kids back. And we ask for your support. You have the ability and the power on that stage to vote. You have that power, we don't. But we're here to help you make it happen. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Kevin. I live in Cumberland. I'm also a product of Greeley. I'm a product of modular classrooms, which are an effective solution used when a district continues to struggle figuring out their future enrollment. This won't be a popular opinion, but at this point, I really do not care. It has been 1 year since we all started this 2-week journey. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, we said. 2 weeks to allow the hospitals to catch up. We allowed our government to force our children out of school, and our world shut down. And now here we are. 1 year later, our children are still not in school full time. All the while, strangers are sitting shoulder to shoulder, jet setting all across this country, all across this globe. All the while, our children are sitting home, looking through a square monitor, looking at their teacher and their other classmates. All the while, we have sporting events. We have football players tackling each other, spitting each other's faces, but our kids are forced to do this hybrid model. This board claims they have done everything possible and asked all the questions. Some people believe you, some people other have questions on that. Have you asked the Maine Department of Education, the CDC, why it's safer to fly on an airplane than be taught in person in school? Let's point out a fact. This board will not allow full-time instruction as long as those recommendations, those guidelines, which are requirements because of funding, are in place. For the parents in this room, to all the parents at home, to all the Facebook warriors out there, this board will continue to follow those guidelines. We have to go to the state where the guidelines are being presented, where they're being mandated. 0 children have died from, with, or near COVID. 1 student in Maine has committed suicide that I know of, and it's unfortunate, and it was preventable. Statistically speaking, your child will kill themselves before they die of COVID in Maine, statistically. Our children's emotional health is being destroyed as they sit at home 2 days a week trying to do their best. I do not believe that this school district will get our kids back 5 days a week. I don't believe with the guidelines in place and the goalposts that have continued to move throughout this year-long 2-week to flatten the curve. I'll leave with one last statement, and that is thank you to all the teachers, to all the maintenance workers, to all the food services, to everybody in those schools that make our children happy when they come to school every day, when they enrich them with the ability of however many hours they have to do in-person learning. Thank you. And I lied. I'm going to say one more thing. To the gentleman and to the 2 young ladies that spoke earlier, thank you. You're courageous. You are the future leaders of this country, and it is absolutely probably terrifying to come up and speak your mind, especially when it's a dissenting opinion. Thank you for all your time.
Are there any others? Okay.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but Jason Record, Cumberland. None of this is directed at teachers. My wife's a teacher. My mom was a teacher. I'm fond of teachers. But you folks up there on stage, you have the power. You're the only ones here that have the power to make change, and you got to push upward. I realize it's easy to allow what's coming down and to roll with it and point the finger. You're the only ones here that really have the influence and the power to push back up, write the letters, sign the letters, and say, this is what we want to do. What are the repercussions? Spell it out for us. Give it to us on paper and prove that you've done everything you could not to put the kids back in school. And just in general, we need less drama and less fear in the community. I mean, this is not Ebola. We have the statistics now. This has been going on a long time. We know that it's risky for 65 and older, but beyond that, it's really not. And I hate to sound insensitive, but for me, it's an easy decision. A 1 in 1,000 or a 1 in 100 shot of a 65-year-old person versus the mental health and well-being of a child. It's easy. And I've said the same thing to my dad, who's 78 years old. So a larger issue and a larger consequence long-term is the community is losing confidence in this board. I know you hear a lot of other things, but there's people here that are a lot of people in the town are afraid to speak up, and people are losing confidence, and that's not good overall long-term. Some other general things. I don't think that we need a lot of emails that are alert, alert, no punchline, don't worry about it. Like, I appreciate that. Maybe they have to go out, but it's not needed and it's not helpful. I would advocate for going back this year to work out the kinks and alleviate that angst, and then kids have summer, and then next year we get it all figured out. I would not advocate for summer school. It's just not worth it. Catching up on academics, I think, will be relatively easy, but the mental health part of it is more important. So I would ask you to push upwards, find the loopholes. I don't care if you have to buy a truckload of plexiglass and tents. Like, ask the kids, when they make games, they find the ways around the rules. Ask them to read the guidelines. I'm positive that they can find a way around it. They're creative. I would just ask that you let us choose. We're not asking you to force your kids to go back to school if you're not comfortable, but I think you should give us the choice to go back if we want to. And again,
Jason, that was 3 minutes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Guess I'll make it a family affair. My name's Laura Record. Good evening. I live in Cumberland, and I have 3 children, 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 8th grade. I don't have solutions about 6 feet of separation. I'm a teacher. I've been living this experience as a mom and a teacher, and it's incredibly difficult on all ends. I do have one possible solution, and I respectfully ask Mr. Porter to reconsider his use of the Bionex Now testing of essential workers who are close contacts. As stated in your February 24th update, you are concerned that offering this testing of symptomatic individuals in the school setting would send mixed messages for people to come to school when not feeling well and increase exposure. However, this is not the case with this testing. I am a teacher in another district in an elementary school that is larger than Maple Eye, and I was part of a trial with this testing. Only asymptomatic close contacts can come to school, and I had to be tested daily before interaction with staff and students. No one tested positive. None of the children that I taught tested positive. It allowed me to continue teaching in person and providing a quality in-person education for my young learners. If the testing had been used, how many classrooms could have remained open at Maple Eye the other week? Every negative test result equates to a teacher or staff member who could have continued in-person teaching. This is one thing that the CDC rules and guidelines allow that we're not taking advantage of. It may allow us to have classrooms or the whole school open longer, and I ask that you please reconsider. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm not seeing anybody moving or standing up. I'm going to assume that that is all the public comment for this evening. Joan, I didn't know if you wanted to address the recommendation about choosing teachers.
Sure, I'm glad that you asked. I think sometimes there's information out there about unions, and I just want to say that we are, in Maine, the Education Association is very much locally based, and towards 90% of our full-time teachers are members of the association. So when we say the Education Association would choose teachers, really that's being chosen through the leadership of the teachers. So they're not two separate entities. So I'm glad you asked about that, and we certainly have great leaders on the association who would make sure that the representatives from each building are well connected throughout the building. So thank you.
Thank you. I thought since you were here, that would be important to clarify. So what I'd like to do is move the item for action for getting to green process recommendation up to now. Ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll go through the board and discuss everything we've just listened to and trying to digest. So do I have a motion for the getting to green process recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to open it up to discussion. Go ahead, Madison.
Okay. I'll start this out as a student, completely unrelated to the board. I mean, I'll start, I guess, as a board member. I'm the junior representative. I was put on the board as a junior to represent my class. There are no sophomores, no freshmen, just juniors. And it's fortunate to see another senior in the audience today that got to discuss, because unfortunately we don't have Elias here. But as a student, I watched my own and every single one of my friends' mental health, grades, everything decline because of COVID. And it was terrible. I mean, you see these little blue dots on the stage. This is where the band sits. We sit 14, I think, 10 feet apart. We can't really hear each other. It sucks. I think every student in this school could agree that they hate hybrid and they want to go back full time. But as a student that also lives part-time with my grandmother, that lives with parents that have immunocompromised issues or they're immunocompromised, I know that I can't just come to school unmasked and I can't just socialize with anyone I want, and I have to social distance from most of everyone that I can. And as a student, it's unfortunate. I want to see everyone's faces. I want to see my new teachers. I don't have a single repeat teacher this year aside from band, and it's exciting to have new teachers and new classmates and all of that. And as a student, I know we can't go fully back in learning. And I know every single comment from the audience today was really excited about full-time, which I am too. I want it so bad. But I know it's not possible. I know we can't do it without losing funding. And as seeing how hard the board has worked and how hard they've put into finance and all of that, I understand why we can't. No matter how disappointed I am, I get it. And I understand why it can't happen, no matter how much I hate it. It's one of those things where you want it to happen, but you just know it's not possible just yet. And I think every student is disappointed by that, but there are mental health initiatives, there are academic initiatives, there are tutoring opportunities for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and I'm really happy to see all of that go on. And seeing all of the mental health initiatives for those who are scared is great. And I know that I'm being kind of the bearer of bad news as a student, which I guess is unfortunate, but that's my take on it.
Thank you, Madison. If it's okay if we just go down the... Yeah, we'll just go down the tables.
Well, my first thing was just sort of a question. For this ad hoc task force, is there a deadline associated with it? I mean, are we trying to get to a certain place by a certain time?
So my recommendation doesn't have a timeline. The only date on there is that by April 5th, the group is checking in with the board again with whatever that check-in looks like, whether it's a recommendation, whether it's a progress update, but there's some sort of interaction with the board at that point by April 5th, so that the board knows where the group is at.
Yeah, I think it might be useful to have some deadline for some sort of final report, preferably before the April break, so that if things do change, there's a plan to implement post-break. That would be just a thought that I would have. My other thought is perhaps slimming down the membership a little bit, whatever that is, 22, 23 people. It's a hard group to maneuver in a month or so time in order to get to a final, some final thoughts. I'm not sure how I'd slim it down, but that's just a pretty unwieldy group, just a suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Peter?
Well, I've personally thought after hearing some of the testimony, I don't do Facebook, but I mean, on a personal basis, I think we've reached the point where the mental and the educational things have. Hate to use the expression but has trumped the health and safety issues. And on a personal basis, when we got this letter last week from the School Management Association telling us that the things that we couldn't do, I sent something back just saying that I think the time has passed when the senior people in our state are not reacting to these distance things, and the bad guys ending up being the superintendent, the local school boards, and the parents and students are collateral damage in this whole thing. And I think very quickly there is a lot of pressure now being put on the CDC. And I would think at some point in time, fairly soon, that enough pressure is going to be on so that something is going to be reduced, so that I want us to, when this happens, to have the staff lined up and have these other things lined up so that these proverbial goalposts that you're talking about are not kicked down the road one more time. So I think there is some usefulness for this to be done to get to those stages. But on a personal basis, I would, if I had children then, I would be happy to sign a waiver for my children to get back into school, and I think my granddaughter would be very happy to have me sign it for there. So I just think the time has come, and I think every or most of the board members here right now would, if their hands were untied on some of the stuff, would go immediately to try to get things done, and trying to figure out being creative. I'm a lot of things, but I would depend on more of the professionals to sort out what we would do. I would be probably more a hindrance than the help on that. But if this can start getting us to the stage so that, if we could possibly open up after the break, at least have us prepared if the social distance things are reduced. And if there are some things that are going to prevent that, let's be up front right now and not kick the can down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
A little envious of Mike over there. So a couple of things. I listen, as I always do. I took as many notes as I could scribble down. I think the thing that is most challenging for me is absolutely is not an adversarial relationship between the school board and the community. Many of us don't talk about the children that we have in the district, but we have them. We have them in different grades. We have them with different challenges. We have all of the same challenges that everybody who came up to the podium spoke about today. Every single one of them. We want to work together to get the students back in the school buildings. That has been our goal since March 13th of last year. Now, I think the discussion that we are having now and that we had with the superintendent's return to green timeline, I think it's the right discussion. My concerns are, as Michael said, the size of the committees. And I think that there's a number of things with it. It's a large committee. The opportunity sits in the way that they're deployed. And so there are those cornerstone things that we need to be able to address in the district, that we need to address as a board. Fairly simple and straightforward. We need to talk about space. We need to talk about transportation, how we get people to and from school. We need to talk about staff. And I think a lot of the discussion staff are moving forward with them being prioritized to get vaccinated. When they get the first and the second dose and then the weeks that follow the second dose, they're better spot to be in front of students. And the most important obstacle that's in front of all of us is the state and the CDC. And so there are 22 people on the list. May have my math is this quick, but there's a lot of people in the community that can be part of our effort, discussion in Augusta to talk about the current rules and regulations and see what we can do to influence and have those overturned. Now, yesterday on the national CDC level, there were discussions about the way they're studying 3 feet for students. So those discussions are happening nationally. They can continue to happen here. We can show leadership as a district, top 5 in the state, to try to influence that. I just, with every fiber of my being, I would like us to be back to green following April break. And I think that if we can try to do the work that we're able to do here, we should be able to get that done. That is all.
Thank you. I'm just going to go because I'm in order. I don't need to go last. So I appreciate what Kevin said, that I'm a parent. I have a daughter that's really looking forward to kindergarten next year, and her kindergarten registration has been on my desk with this weight of what's kindergarten going to look like for her. She keeps asking me these questions that even as a board member, I don't know the answer to. I have a son who's a first grader who's fully remote, and I take him outside as often as I can. We have so much fun, yet he's been in and out of the doctors for the past 2 months because he's stressed out and won't leave the house. I am no different. We are all parents. We are experiencing very similar struggles. And I have had to remove myself from the conversations in this community because they've been so ill-willed. And I just want to ask everyone to stop the banter and continue to look for solutions and remember that we are all people up here as well. I continue to answer emails with compassion and empathy, and I'm told that I'm being patronizing. And so I'm frustrated, but I'm also trying to remember that we are elected officials and that we do have a responsibility. I worked for the past 4 days straight over the weekend talking to all of our board members, trying to figure out what is the best step we can take. We know there are engaged people in this community, which is awesome. Let's figure out a way to work together. We're being told that we're not being honest or being transparent, then let's work together. And I think that this recommendation not only helps unite our community, but also gives us the ability to lean on some of the other people in our community that may have background to help us get to some of these, or to help get through some of these struggles. I do agree that the membership is high, but I think it's required. We have to have all these voices at the table. I also agree that there should be a deadline, but I think that that should be something that the recommendation should include once this group has been able to meet. I just want to ask our community to please meet each other with compassion. All of us are struggling, and there is not one person on this stage that doesn't want our kids back in school. So just please don't forget that. We are working really hard.
That was well said, Tyler. I think putting together a task force, something we've heard over and over again, is that there are people that want to help, they want to be involved, that there's teachers that want to be back full-time 5 days. And I think it's time to put people together and to start looking at the minutia of what it would take. I agree with Mike Simmons that I think a pretty, solid timeline is warranted. I think what we're going to see in the next few months or the next few weeks is a lot of school districts saying we're putting this task force together to get back to 5 days after April break. I also don't think it's going to happen. So I think there's a lot of posturing happening, but I think everyone is really well aware of how the state distancing guidelines have hemmed us in. And so my question to you, Jeff, if we can ask questions right now, would be a brief, say the state lifts the guidelines, how quickly can we get students back in 5 days? And do you see the state lifting those guidelines before the end of the school year?
So I'm in meetings every week with folks from the state and as well as the county superintendents in Cumberland County. And we ask that question every week, is the state changing its position on relaxing those standards? We have a representative from the Department of Education, from Maine School Management, who joins our meetings. And the answer so far, as of Friday, was no, we have no plans to do that this year. We've asked, what would it take to get to that? We've asked all the questions that we need to be asking. And the state is well aware that there's a lot of concern about this issue among a lot of people, including superintendents and school boards, and that we're advocating for something that's safe. We don't want to be unsafe, but also is reasonable in order to get our way back to green at a position that makes sense. I think, and I know that there's not, I don't want to take your time, but I think this proposal will help us get to green and be prepared for the time when the state will say yes. And I think one thing I want to say is I do refute people saying that there's a lot of school districts doing this. There's a lot of school districts talking about doing this. There are very, very few districts, especially in southern Maine, that have even taken the step to do this. They're talking about it. So I don't think that we're in a different position than most other districts around us.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I look at this as this task force is in place. If there's a way to figure if the distancing requirements are lifted, which it sounds like, and I think that's also something really important, Jeff, is that people know that every Friday you're on an hour, 2-3 hour call with area superintendents, problem solving, trying to advocate for changes that are going to allow for more instruction. Like, nobody is just saying, oh, we're not doing anything until the state changes their guidelines. It is a weekly, daily discussion and point of action. And so that is important. And I hope that with this advisory group being formed, that the minute the switch is flipped from the state, that we might have 1 or 2 days of facilities and whatever we need to do, transportation rearranging, but that we are ready to go, because I think we can't lose any more ground. And I do hope that the state will be really clear as to how they've formulated their distancing guidelines, because I think that's another thing. I think people are unsure of how has that decision been made. And I'm being told it's the end all be all as a board member, and that it's what's safest. And I want to see that from the state. And I think that it sounds like you're continually asking the state for their forecast about the distancing guidelines every Friday with other superintendents. So thank you for advocating for our students at that level. And that's just one of many levels that you do that. And I will support this being formed. I think it's a really large advisory group. I think it's going to have to be chaired really well. 20 people is a lot of people to get heading in one direction. And as a mom of 3, it's tough. So I wish you the best of luck. I know it's going to be successful because I know the talent that we have in this district. So I will definitely support this because we do need to get kids back in school.
Thank you, Kate. Margot?
Boy, it's not good being on this side of the table. I want to say, first of all, that I hear you all. I hear my fellow board members and what you're saying, and I hear the public comment, the comments from Joan and the administrators last week. It is a lot to carry, I'm not going to lie, and I feel like having this group formed will be an important element of offering transparency in the work that we've been all doing over the course of the year. I think everybody is coming to this situation from their own experience, and I think an important part of the group will be to share a common body of knowledge. And I reached out to Jeff to say I like the idea, but I think sometimes we hear ideas which may sound great, but when you overlay it into the restrictions, either legally or educationally, it doesn't always work. So I think creating a common body of knowledge will be important so that the work that the group does can be productive, and so that ideas are presented to us that are actually doable ideas. One thing that the past year has shown us is that change just keeps coming, and I think there are plenty of people who feel a lot of hope as spring is coming for a lot of reasons, and I think that's warranted. I think having the ability to be outside, whether it's in school or in people's yards or on the trails, being outside and being in spring is going to be a benefit to everyone's mental health. So I am looking forward to that. At the beginning of the year, over the course of the summer, we were working on this red, yellow, and green plan, not knowing how the school would open. And we asked of the community to grant us, as an organization, grace. None of us have done a lot of what we're doing this year. We are always open to more information and more sharing of experiences, but I can honestly say I'm doing things that I did not expect to be doing this year. There's not a book that we're following or veering off from. So I think engaging some more community ideas will be great. I think that the responsibility that we all feel maybe tamps down a little bit on our creativity. I'll only speak for myself. Sometimes when I'm under a lot of stress, I don't come up with the best ideas. So I will be excited to hear what people have to say. And just from a personal standpoint, I empathize, especially with the mental health challenges that parents are facing, that students are facing, that our teachers are facing, and administrators and board members. It's a lot.
I'm sorry to chuckle, but I feel as though a lot of the things that I've written down have really been touched upon. Leaving last week's, or the last board meeting that we had, and having so many people speak in going back to 5 days, and it was so moving. And I have 3 kids. I have 2 middle schoolers that I have to deal with Google Classroom way more than I ever want to. And I have a high schooler, and she has a lot of questions about what next year will be like. She hasn't been in person for a whole year during her high school. But people spoke, and then Madison spoke last time on how her and her friends were all really still masking and nervous. And I think we have to give each other grace to understand that each person is so different. And we are all so different in how we're coming about. And it has gotten really nasty, and I really feel like we need to really give each other some grace in this, and give our kids grace, give our neighbors, and pipe down on social media or really coming out and being nasty to your friends about it. And I think we have to really understand the words that we use as we move forward. But I thought that was really moving, and it was kind of the same thing tonight, Madison, with you. Being able to share that is so moving, because we can't really understand as a student what you feel when you enter the school. And I know we're really advocating for our kids and how we feel like we went through school and how we want it. With that said, I think the ad hoc committee is a good idea. I just hope that it doesn't take too much time away from what we're trying to accomplish with the learning that we need to have our kids do right now. And that it's not going to take away from teacher time or the admin what you need to do. So I hope it's really focused and streamlined and is able to really just be productive and not be in the weeds with so many people. And really, maybe I'm simplifying it, but the way that I've approached this is we need our teachers vaccinated, we need the guidelines dropped, and then we need a little bit of time to figure out how to get back into school. Like, it's really like, you know, we got to check this box, we got to check the next one, and then we need 2 weeks, and then we can open or something. Maybe not that, but like, this seems like out of our hands, and I get it, like we need to, you know, go to mills and we need to do all of this stuff, but to put that all on us, I think is hard, or our principals and things. There's really a lot of momentum that we're seeing in the news right now, and I think that's only going to get more to really put that pressure on. So I really think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, things are going to change. And I think that's probably it that I have. Mike.
Save the worst for last. So see how garbled I am here. So this has definitely become an issue for people to posture on, and it's absolutely tragic because most people who are speaking out on this are deeply hurting. Absolutely, I heard a lot. Most tonight, people hurting. This is really freaking hard, and people just want to be part of the process and be included, and that's extraordinary. That's amazing, and we should honor that. And I especially appreciate those who've stayed here tonight to keep listening. I really appreciate that. You know, I am also torn between being a parent and my responsibility as a board member. I'm a parent of a daughter who's dipped in and out of depression this year, seeing a therapist roughly weekly. It's been terrible. You know, suicide, it was part of things like that. It's been horrible. Both my wife and I work full-time. The stress level in our house is brutal at times. I have a son who's in 2nd grade and on a 504. Virtual learning is, I'm trying not to curse, is absolutely impossible. Impossible. But as a board member, we have absolute strict guidelines, mandates, and responsibilities across the board. And I hate hearing people saying, well, the mental health concerns are extraordinary, but, you know, only so many people have died. One person dying here would be horrific. So I just cannot stand hearing anything like that. In fact, it wasn't 6 weeks ago that we were at record COVID cases daily in this state. Things are moving fast. Thank God they're moving in this direction. Thank God we have vaccines. Thank God the governor changed the vaccine priority and put teachers. That should have happened way earlier. I'm sorry it didn't. I am unequivocally committed to getting to 5 days a week. Absolutely by this fall. I will be royally pissed if we're not, and preferably this spring. Jennifer laid it out really clear, the process to go through that, and I think, you know, Jeff laid out a good plan, and generally speaking, and I said this to Jeff on our communications committee, I think task forces can be a tool for delay and dismissal at times, and I was really skeptical, but this is different. We have a 2-week time frame, high-level engagement, direct recommendations. People want creativity, want to be part of the process. This is a process that is a perfect avenue to try to identify creative solutions, and preferably with an expedited timeline that can meet the potentially rapid changes in mandates. Hopefully we will see. People mentioned tents. Was it August or July where Tyler and I were walking around the campus trying to figure out tents? We were talking with Scott. We had fire code issues. We had 12-week wait times. I mean, we've gone through a lot of this stuff. It's hard, but again, there's a huge community that could potentially come together and figure it out. I totally. Staffing. It's absolute roadblock. I mean, we can't fill positions we have open now, 6 or so. Can't fill them with people. Somebody offered to be a substitute. That's great, but these are significantly hard issues. And to that, this needs to happen. It can't just be us. It has to be other schools opening up too at the same time. People keep mentioning advocating. I've advocated personally. People have made, I try not to look at social media, but people have made snide comments about talking to the press. To be honest with you, Sunday front page of the Press Herald, Jeff saying that if the CDC guidelines don't change, we can't open, is one of the best ways to advocate. To put that out there and put that on the governor's desk being like, we can't do anything if the state CDC doesn't change the guidelines. Somebody mentioned utilizing more testing. That sounds like a good idea, and it's a perfect thing to bring up for a group like this. And just so this experience has been the year-long experience. I mean, a learning experience, I guess, but everything is constantly changing. I had a discussion with a friend of mine who is an emergency room physician in New Hampshire, and he has now started to voice publicly that the CDC, the national CDC, as well as state CDCs, need to change their guidelines and their mandates, especially for younger kids. The American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't mandate that the spacing differential, so the CDC needs to recognize that. It's masks and ventilation that we need to focus on. I plan on doing more on my part to try to advocate. Peter mentioned the Maine School Management Association. I'm going to email them tonight and ask them why they're not pushing the state to change this. And again, just on staffing and childcare, it's just nuts that this is happening district by district. There's beauty and there's disaster in local control. This is a global pandemic. It's statewide issues. We're intertwined across communities. If we open, we have teachers and staff who have kids in other districts that don't open. We are absolutely crushed staffing-wise. This needs to happen at least county-wide, if not statewide. We're completely at the whim of that. The phrase learning loss and things like that, people spoke to it, I think, really well, but I just want to say out loud, I don't ever want to hear that phrase. I think that's horrifying. Teachers are doing extraordinary work this year. Parents are doing extraordinary work this year. Our children are learning in many different ways. Some of them we never wanted them to go through, but this notion of learning loss, I just have to say, and I appreciate Jeff, if he consistently pushed back against anything like that, we will do fine. I did also want to speak, Joan, thank you for jumping in. I have a long experience with the labor movement. Unions are democratically elected. I didn't know it was 90% of the teachers here. That's a very significant number. They're democratically elected of the people that they represent. So it's important to recognize that that is the voice of a teacher. It's not some outside entity speaking for people. And just the last thing, this feels like a process that creates a collaborative effort that we need to have with our staff, with our teachers, with our administrators, with our parents, to actually figure out how to get green, to deal with these issues. And we need that collaboration or we're going to fail. I want us to get back to 5 days this year, and this is the vessel that we can do it.
Thank you, Mike. All right. So we've already passed a motion and a second. Seeing that there's no further discussion, I ask for a vote. So all in favor? Great. Thank you very much. And I also want to say I appreciate those that stayed and listened. Thank you so much. So for those, now that we know that this is passed and we will be moving forward, there will be some communication that will be going out tomorrow morning. That will be in a form of an all call for parents to fill out a form to send in their information and their interest levels. And I know that those other stakeholder groups will be doing the same, but for those out there that are interested in the parents, please look for that information tomorrow in your email. So moving on, we have Superintendent's report.
And I think I'll just couch my report in saying that I think some of I've heard from a lot of parents in the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate the parents that have spoken up one way or the other on this topic. And I've appreciated people reaching out. I've heard from many. I know board members have heard from many. I've heard from parents who have also said, thank you for staying in hybrid for now until we know for sure. I've heard from parents saying, you got to get us open ASAP. This is a mental health challenge. And I hear all those frustrations, and, I'm a parent just like everybody else up here, and it's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. We all want our kids back in school, and it doesn't feel right every day that we're here when all of the students are in our campus, are not on our campus. So that's what we want. And I think for me, it's, we've internally been planning, but it's time for us to publicly be planning as well. And that's the one thing that I know has been more of a voice in the last week or two from parents. And so we want your voice in there, and we hope this mechanism will help with that, to start that up. So the superintendent's report tonight, I also just want to say that there is a new state assessment. We have been, told that there may or may not be an administration this spring. We received confirmation last week that the state is asking us to now assess our students as we have every year, grades 3 to 8. We didn't do that last year, obviously, with the pandemic that started, and then juniors in high school, third year of high school. So we'll put some more information out about this, but the contract with NWEA was signed by the state, which now means that we'll be administering the spring assessment to students in grades 3 to 8 and juniors. This assessment is much shorter, and it's online, and it's not as cumbersome as the main educational assessment. And we also get results in real time. We don't have to wait weeks, and in some cases months in some years, for the results to be back in our hands and for teachers to be able to use it. This assessment, the state has signed a contract for us to assess students in these grades twice a year, in the fall and in the spring. But I just wanted to let everyone know tonight that this has been a question mark for a while now, and we did get confirmation last week that we need to move ahead with the assessment. And I think it'll be a good thing in the long run for us in terms of our student being able to monitor our students' progress without a cumbersome process, which has been in the past. Some news on the winter sports front. Just congratulations to Leif Harvey for winning the Western Maine Championship Nordic Ski for 2021. Congratulations to Leif, and also to Lizzie Hansen. She is the 2021 Western Maine Conference slalom champion, first place, and Ruth Weeks, who won the second place Western Maine Conference giant slalom runner-up. So congratulations to those students. And I just want to say, and I didn't get pictures from all the athletic teams, but for all the kids who have participated in athletics, in extracurricular activities, even when they've been curtailed during the winter months, just going and putting that extra effort in. We had the swim team getting really excited about a meet that they had at the pool last week. We had the girls hockey team. This was their last practice of the season down at Falmouth Ice, and they were excited that they had a season. And it's great to see the positives and kind of look at these things, that at least some of these things could happen, and we hope that now that things are moving along, more of these things will return to a typical look. Concurrent learning, people are always wondering, what does concurrent learning look like? This will be on my blog that goes out this week, and you can get some more information. This is Mrs. Way's class at the high school. These are students who are concurrently learning in a theory of knowledge class and actually having a debate with each other. Women's accomplishments. This is a focus on women's accomplishments in women's history at the middle school 6-8. We had 2 students in the civil rights team who put together this, this great display. If you have a chance to see it at some point, hopefully this year, you'll be able to see that. At Greeley Middle School 4-5, the fun continues. Superhero Day at GMS 4-5. You can't beat that. And then finally at the high school, Wall of Inclusion. So we've had a lot of students who have contributed their hands to a wall of inclusion at the high school through the Best Buddies Friendship Program as well. And these are some of our students from our functional life skills class that were checking the wall out and kind of displaying it for us to make sure we get it into the news. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. It's always good to see pictures of inside the classrooms and what's going on in the schools, especially this year. So thank you for bringing a little life to us in that way. So we will move on to committee reports. Finance, I think we did a pretty good report on that today.
You did. I just want to, just the only thing on there for the board is that, the workshop piece with the talented Mr. Poulin. I think it's actually a benefit to be able to be doing that remotely and scribble furiously. We're going to get packets out to people so that they can take their own notes.
Yes, I believe packets will be available for picking up at central office, if that sounds reasonable.
We'll get that taken care of.
Okay.
Budget packets.
Were there still some up front? Okay, perfect.
Okay, I didn't grab one, but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And policy, Anne is not here tonight, but I believe Kate was going to give an update, or is there anything to update?
Tonight we worked on the booster policy, and that is going to go back to Drummond and Woodsum just for a final review. And then we started some other board-related policies that needed some adjustment to align with procedure. So those will be coming, and those are about agenda creation, and stuff like that. And hopefully Anne will be back in charge because I forgot how to run a meeting.
Awesome, thank you. Facilities, Peter?
Jeff and Scott had, in Oak Point, had a feedback meeting with the teachers regarding the new building, and as we speak, Oak Point is in the process of doing the development work on the model, and by the end of the month, they'll be ready for a meeting with finance and facilities.
Great, thank you. Mike Simmons, curriculum.
No update there.
Okay. And Madison, student report?
I don't have Elias here to aid me through this, but
you do a great job.
Thank you. Even though I do debate, unscripted speaking is not my forte. So nothing super special. I know that people are excited. They want to go back to in person. So that's really it. They want to go back, but they're nervous.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to our other item for action tonight, which is a second reading of the 2021-22 school calendar. We did get a first reading at our last meeting. I'll open up for a motion in a second, and then we'll have discussion. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or would like further information before we vote?
Tyler, are there any changes from the last reading that we had?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No changes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions or comments before we vote? Okay. All in favor? Great, thank you. All right. So that takes us to our last item. I just want to say thank you for everybody that showed up. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for continuing to be a part of this process. I encourage everyone to continue to be a part of this process longer than just the pandemic relief response, getting to green. It's hard, but it's important to have everyone engaged. It doesn't mean we all have to agree. We have to treat each other with compassion and respect, but it is really wonderful to see the community engaged in the way they are. So I just want to say thank you. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.